Mesmeric Revelation by Edgar Allan Poe. Is God then material? No. This reply startled me very much. What is he then? After a long pause, and mutteringly, I see. But it is a difficult thing to tell. After another long pause. He is not a spirit, for he exists, nor is he matter, as you understand it. But there are gradations of matter, of which man knows nothing, the grosser impelling the finer pervading the grosser. The atmosphere, for example, impels the electric principle, while the electric principle permeates the atmosphere. These gradations of matter increase in rarity or fineness, until we arrive at matter unparticled, without particles, indivisible. One and here, the law of impulsion and permeation is modified. The ultimate or unparticled matter not only permeates all things, but impels all things, and thus is all things within itself. This matter is God. What men attempt to embody in the word thought is this matter in motion. The metaphysicians maintain that all action is reducible to motion and thinking, and that the latter is the origin of the former. Yes, and now I see the confusion of the idea. Motion is the action of the mind, not of thinking. The unparticled matter, or God, in quiescence, is, as nearly as we can conceive it, what men call mind, and the power of self-movement, equivalent in effect to human volition, is, in the unparticled matter, the result of its unity and omniprevalence. How I know not, and now clearly I see that I shall never know. But the unparticled matter, set in motion by law or quality, existing within itself, is thinking. Can you give me no more precise idea of what you term the unparticled matter? The matters of which man is cognizant escape the senses in gradation. We have, for example, a metal, a piece of wood, a drop of water, the atmosphere, a gas, caloric, electricity, the luminiferous ether. Now we call all these things matter, and embrace all matter in one general definition. But in spite of this, there can be no two ideas more essentially distinct than that which we attach to a metal and that which we attach to the luminiferous ether. When we reach the latter, we feel an almost irresistible inclination to class it with a spirit, or with nihility. The only consideration which restrains us is our conception of its atomic constitution, and here even we have to seek aid from our notion of an atom. As something possessing an infinite minuteness, solidity, palpability, weight. Destroy the idea of the atomic constitution, and we should no longer be able to regard the ether as an entity, or at least as matter. For want of a better word, we may term it spirit. Take now a step beyond the luminiferous ether. Conceive a matter as much more rare than the ether, as this ether is more rare than the metal, and we arrive at once, in spite of all the school dogmas, at a unique mass in unparticled matter. For although we may admit infinite littleness in the atoms themselves, an infinitude of littleness in the spaces in between them is an absurdity. There will be a point, there will be a degree of rarity, at which, if the atoms are sufficiently numerous, the interspaces must vanish, and the mass absolutely coalesce. But the consideration of the atomic constitution being now taken away, the nature of the mass inevitably glides into what we conceive of spirit. It is clear, however, that it is as fully matter as before. The truth is, it is impossible to conceive spirit, since it is impossible to imagine what is not. When we flatter ourselves that we have formed its conception, we have merely deceived our understanding by the consideration of infinitely rarefied matter. There seems to me an insurmountable objection to the idea of absolute coalescence, and that is the very slight resistance experienced by the heavenly bodies in their revolutions through space. A resistance now ascertained, it is true, to exist in some degree, but which is nevertheless so slight as to have been quite overlooked by the sagacity even of Newton. We know that the resistance of the heavenly bodies is chiefly in proportion to their density. Absolute coalescence is absolute density. Where there are no interspaces, there can be no yielding. An ether, absolutely dense, would put an infinitely more effectual stop to the progress of a star than would an ether of adamant or of iron. Your objection is answered with an ease which is nearly in the ratio of its apparent unanswerability. As regards the progress of a star, it can make no difference whether the star passes through the ether or the ether passes through it. There is no astronomical error more unaccountable than that which reconciles the known retardation of the comets with the idea of their passage through an ether. For however rare this ether be supposed, it would put a stop to all sidereal revolutions in a very far briefer period than has been admitted by those astronomers who have endeavored to slur over a point which they have found it impossible to comprehend. The retardation actually experienced is, on the other hand, about that which might have been expected from the friction of the ether in an instantaneous passage through the orb. In the one case, the retarding force is momentary and complete within itself. In the other, it is endlessly accumulative. But in all this, in this identification of mere matter with God, is there nothing of irrelevance? I was forced to repeat this question before the sleep-waker fully comprehended my meaning. Can you say why matter should be less reverenced than the mind? But you forget that the matter of which I speak is in all respect the very mind or spirit of the schools, so far as regards its high capacities, and is, moreover, the matter of these schools. At the same time, God, with all the powers attributed to the spirit, is but the perfection of matter. You assert, then, that the unparticled matter in motion is thought. In general, this motion is a universal thought of universal mind. This thought creates. All created things are but the thoughts of God. You say, in general. Yes, the universal mind is God. For new individualities, matter is necessary. But you speak now of mind and matter, as do the metaphysicians.